Hello, everyone, and welcome on into a Friday night version of the college basketball preview here on Fox Sports The Gambler. I am Joe Tansey. That is Mark Henry Jr. One of us is doing a little better on their bets than the other. And all of our NCAA bracket coverage here on The Gambler is presented by AAA. Be ready, get AAA. Can AAA fix your bets at this point, Mark? You do a little roadside service for your brain and kind of recalibrate it for the night session.
Maybe if the roadside, the person who comes to assist me has winners, because man, I don't have them on my own. Good day yesterday, and I was diving into the stats the other day. My last 3 tournaments have been just remarkably profitable. So I thought going into yesterday, I was like, man, this is regression coming for me. Like I'm gonna have a terrible day. And then I had a great day. Not a great end of the night, but I was 6-1 to start. Still ended up very profitable. I'm like, man, maybe I'm just good at the tournament. And then Tuesday or Friday comes around, and I couldn't find a winner if it was staring me right in the face. So stressing Colorado here. Colorado's up 3. We have +2 on Colorado. One of my bigger bets of the day. That would really get me back on the right track.
I have the money line on Colorado, so we're both sweating the buffs. And then we got a potential upset cooking in the Yale-Auburn game. It's 48-46 Auburn with about 14 minutes to go. Plenty of time left in both of these games, so we'll give you updates on them as we get rolling here. But Mark, let's talk about the big storyline of the tournament right now, other than Kentucky losing to Oakland. The Mountain West continues to be overrated. We're putting 6 teams in from the Mountain West. We're not getting results outside of San Diego State. Teams from the Mountain West are 1-14 outside of San Diego State in the last 15 NCAA tournament games. What are we doing here now? Like 2 years ago, everybody should have got the warning signs. We hyped up this 6-bid league. Everybody's in. And here's what the Mountain West has done so far. Boise State loses in the first 4 to Colorado. Colorado State beats Virginia, not saying much because Virginia stinks. Colorado State then goes on to score 11 points in the first half and loses to Texas. Nevada blows what was that, a 19-point lead against Nevada or Dayton?
17, 19, something like that.
Whatever it was, a complete choke job by the Wolfpack. And then today, the New Mexico Lobos, everybody's sexy pick as a double-digit seed. Not me. I flipped to Clemson. I saw the reading of the tea leaves there. Guess what? They got blown out.
Never in it.
Never, absolutely no shot in that game. And San Diego State, once again, is the last bastion of hope for the Mountain West. The only really good tournament-tested team in the Mountain West. Yes, we'll get to that. I know exactly. I'm doing the exact same thing because Utah State is still alive. Can Utah State be that team that reverses a little bit, not all of it, but a little bit of the narrative on the Mountain West? And that's where I want to start. I'm on Utah State tonight, +4 in the money line. I think you're on Utah State as well against TCU in the 8-9 game. One of the late tip-offs. What can we expect at this point? Because Utah State's gotten a ton of hype this season, rightfully so. Danny Sprinkle, potential Coach of the Year candidate. They've been one of the better teams. Tell me why Utah State's going to be different than everybody else in the Mountain West outside of San Diego State.
Auburn just had a pretty incredible alley-oop, by the way. It felt like a kind of a game-changing alley-oop there, momentum shifter, and looks like now they just hit a 3. So, yeah, it looks like Auburn's going to pull away. Just took a 7-point lead. Utah State, I'd be lying if I told you that the Mountain West struggles aren't giving me a little bit of concern. You can talk yourself out of it. You could say, Nevada outplayed Dayton in that game, should have won that game and collapsed at the end. You could say Colorado State won their way in. Maybe they were tired from having to play and then fly in on short notice. But ultimately, the results have been bad. And to be even honest, San Diego State, that Jaden Leday had to completely put that team in a backpack, strap it on his back, and carry them on his own. And this, I don't want to get sidetracked talking about the San Diego State game when I'm supposed to talk about Utah State here. I will say, just as an aside, I don't think we're going to talk much about that specific game, San Diego State UAB. Jaden Leday, I know he only had like 30 or 32.
Phenomenal.
Whatever it was. I think it's one of the best March Madness performances I've seen in the last decade. Like, I know there's been guys who have 40, guys who have triple doubles, whatever the case may be. That was just he took over the game. He got every important bucket down the stretch for San Diego State. He was making plays on defense, getting to the line, making threes, getting inside. He was just doing everything he could. And without him, San Diego State would have lost that game by double digits. So,
correct.
The Mountain West has been concerning. I'm going to go with Utah State. I'm going with Great Ozabor, going with Danny Sprinkle. He needs to sprinkle a little fairy dust on the Mountain West to figure something out here because, man, it's a curse.
What about TCU? Because I'll be honest, didn't watch a ton of TCU this year. Kind of a middle of the pack team in the Big 12. What could we expect from the Horned Frogs in this matchup, and why are they the 4-point favorite? Is it because they play in the stronger conference in the Big 12?
I'll be quite honest. I have no idea why this team is a 4-point favorite. It makes no sense to me. I set this line, Utah State -1.5. A lot of people, and it's tough to go back and talk about them being underseeded. Now that we've seen how the Mountain West has played in the tournament, but people thought Utah State was going to be a 5 seed. I mean, that's where people had them on that 5-6 line. Here they are as an 8 seed. TCU, a team that many people had in the play-in or right there on the bubble potentially. Here they are as a 9, and they're a 3.5, 4.5 point favorite, depending on where you look. I feel like people are thinking that they're betting on like the Eddie Lampkin TCU team that was fun a couple years ago. Like Eddie Lampkin's on TV right now, folks. Like he's on Colorado.
With who's the point guard? Mike Miles?
Yeah, Miles. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good call. They had another good scorer on that team. Miles Lampkin. I can't remember who the other guy was, but and they have Nelson, they have Miller. They do have some good guard play. I don't know if they have anyone who can deal with Ozabor, to be quite honest. And Jamie Dixon, really good coach. I feel like you generally hear that and you're like, oh, tournament success, Jamie Dixon. Interesting stat. Worst against the spread coach in the history of the tournament as a favorite is Jamie Dixon at 6-15-1 against the spread as a favorite. Now he's not a huge favorite here. He's only a 3.5, 4.5 point favorite, but still, I thought that was relevant, much better as an underdog.
How many people actually know Jamie Dixon's the coach of TCU?
I'd say.
I think that's the better question. Like, if you were to put like a casual college basketball fan out there, would they know that Jamie Dixon?
Now.
He has been. It's kind of just like
tournaments,
but he hasn't done anything like spectacular there.
Yeah. I think people know just because he's been in enough tournaments and he's like a name that people probably remember from Pitt. So once you see it once, you might know. I don't think anyone in the country can tell you who Florida's coach is.
Florida's? Yeah. I mean, he's also relatively new, so I'll give him that.
This is his second year?
Yeah, because he came over from San Francisco after they had that success in the WCC a few years ago.
Yeah.
Let's get on to more dogs because it feels like there's at least one really trendy dog, potentially a second one as well on the slate tonight. I'm talking about Charleston and I'm talking about James Madison. Now, everybody, it feels like, is on James Madison, and it feels like that there's one specific stat that gets thrown out there every time we talk about this matchup, is that Wisconsin has the worst 3-point defense of the teams in the field of 68. What does James Madison do very well? They shoot the 3. Now, again, when it comes to conference tournament performance, I kind of shy away from using that as a backbone for my analysis because it's
although
the
Bid Steelers, New Mexico stunk, but the other Bid Steelers.
The other Bid Steelers were there. I have a hard time using that as like my sole analysis, and that's where I lie with Wisconsin. Is up until February 1st, they're arguably one of the top 10 teams in the country, but now we're reaching a point where was last week a complete correction after 6 weeks of misery, or was it just its tournament setting? They felt a little desperate, wanted to prove a point. I'm not sure, and I'm not totally convinced in Wisconsin. I'm gonna buy the public love on James Madison at this point. It really comes down to if I think it's pretty level. There's one big statistical anomaly that I think I can't get over with Wisconsin, and that's the 3-point defense.
Yeah, I mean, even with this run in the conference tournament, which is 3-1 run, by the way. So they went 3-1. They were 3-8 in the 11 games previous to that stretch. They're 6 so that means that they're 6-9 in the last 15 games. So yeah, exactly. So if you want to take a recency bias snapshot, just make it a little less recent, and it's still it's concerning. At that 6-9 stretch in 15 games, it's just, I think that tells you more about this team than the 3-8 stretch does, or than the 3-1 stretch does. I think take it overall, and James Madison is a team that, they're 31-3 in 34 games. Obviously, much different schedule. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they've played.
But did beat Michigan State. That's what everybody's going to hang their hat on.
They did beat Michigan State, who looked darn good yesterday, and Vegas is giving a ton of respect in that UNC spread for Saturday. So, but you mentioned the Wisconsin's defense has struggled with defending the 3-point shot, and I think that's the main stat here in this game. But another interesting stat, and this stat hurts my favorite bet in the game, which is actually the over. But James Madison's defense also thrives at forcing tough 3-point shots. Opponents shoot just 28% from 3 against JMU. That's top 3 in the country nationally. So that's what Wisconsin wants to do as well. They want to jack threes. JMU does a good job preventing it. JMU wants to jack threes. Wisconsin does a horrible job preventing it. I hate to make it that cut and dry, but I mean, it feels like 3-point variance is what determines most basketball games at this point on the college level and on the pro level. And if I can make a good guess at how that 3-point variance is going to go, it's probably going to be James Madison shooting themselves into this game.
I got him at plus 5.5. I sprinkled the money line. I'm buying into it. And it is because of that 3-point matchup. Like it really is. It feels like it's too much to ignore with James Madison. So I'm very interested to see how that game goes. It's one of the late night tips. We'll see how Wisconsin does handle all of that. The other one,
real quick, I just wanted to chime in because I don't know if we'll go back to that game. Because I'm also with you on James Madison plus 6. I threw their money line in a parlay. My favorite bet from the game, I alluded to it. It's the over. I love the over there at 144.5. Wisconsin's the 5th best over team in the tournament, 8-2 in the last 10 to the over. JMU's 6-1 in their last 7 to the over. Both teams shoot a lot of threes. It's what they want to do. Obviously, we just went through. One side does a good job preventing it. One side does a poor job. But I love the over there. I love James Madison. I'm going to be dialed into this game. A confession. I made a confession on Twitter. I fell asleep during the last couple minutes of that Drake game last night. The late game execution has to be better on my end. I promise.
This is the only reason my late game execution is anywhere close to where it needs to be. I will sleep tonight. I will look. We got a nice little buffer because it's 12:45 first tip on Saturday. So we got an extra like half an hour to sleep. So that I will gladly take that. Real quick.
You have up until 11 a.m. to sleep because the Tough Cover Radio show is going right up until the tip time. By the way, perfect for the Tough Cover Radio show that they pushed that half hour, 12:15. That helps me a lot to go to 12:45. I'm not doing 45 minutes of a show during the games. It's very thank you to the NCAA.
The first half under in that Dayton, Arizona game is going to be wildly popular because of we talked about it earlier today with Sean Brace. The 10:45 local tip time, the second game at altitude in 3 days for both teams. Dayton just put a ton of just everything into that comeback against Nevada. We'll see how that ends up going.
Not to get too deep into that game, because obviously we have a whole Saturday to break down the Saturday card. If Arizona's a title contender, they smack Dayton in that game.
Agreed. I absolutely agree with you on that. Joe Tansey, Mark Henry Jr. here with your Fox Sports The Gambler coverage. All of our NCAA bracket coverage presented by AAA. Be ready, get AAA. Let's give you a quick score update. Colorado starting to maybe pull away a little bit on Florida, 70-63 at the 10-20 mark of the second half. And Auburn up 7, 57-50 on Yale. Also, basically the same timing, 15 seconds apart between the two games. Let's talk about the other upset-minded team in this game and this night slate is Charleston. +9 against Alabama. Alabama doesn't play any defense. Like that is the handicap here. There's a reason why the over-under is now at, let's see where it's at right now, 173. The highest total on the board for the first round of games. how does Alabama win this game by double digits? Because I'm not finding a way to do so, and I think Alabama from the last 3 weeks makes them very susceptible to an upset tonight.
By the way, you mentioned the Mountain West having some struggles in this tournament. We haven't seen an SEC team get to the second round yet.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, we have Auburn is
Auburn,
up 10.
yeah, but they're
Auburn's up
there.
10. Florida's down 8, down 5. I just jinxed that myself there. Shouldn't even have said that out loud. That was horrible. Knock on some wood. But I still think that it's noteworthy. I've been talking all year that I think the SEC is overrated. They don't play any defense. They don't play defense, Paul, in that conference. So I don't think it's like the mid to late 2000s Big 12 in football. All these people putting up shiny offensive numbers. Kentucky, Alabama, they're all top 3 in offensive efficiency. By the way, I nailed the Duquesne thing. I've got a lot wrong this week. I've got a couple things right. I nailed the Duquesne thing. I nailed the Kentucky thing more than anything I've ever said on these streams when I said they can either win the title or they can lose to Oakland. And I feel similarly about Alabama. Like, I don't feel like they could win the title. I don't think they're quite as dynamic as Kentucky was, where it's like, oh, well, if it gets right, they have Dillingham and Shepard. Like, Bama's got Sears. They don't have Dillingham and Shepard and, all these guys who are such high pedigree. But Bama, to me, could go on a deep run where they shoot themselves into the Final Four, maybe Elite 8, or they could lose by 20 today against Charleston if they stink from 3 and if Charleston, runs it up on them. So I will not be betting Alabama games this tournament. I think like maybe you could sell me round 2 if St. Mary's makes it through and looks good against an Alabama team. Maybe I could sell myself on them for sure, slowing the pace down. I don't know if Charleston's the right team to take Alabama down. It could be the perfect thing, a taste of your own medicine a little bit. That could work perfectly for Charleston. I tend to think it's more of a St. Mary's team that'll really, really frustrate Alabama. But if you made me make a point or you made me make a pick on the point spread, it would be Charleston with the points. Whereas at 9. Yeah, that would be where I'd lean.
Yeah, I think with Charleston, look, they were in the tournament last year. Some people picked them as an upset pick against San Diego State. Didn't really get the job done, but that's a really tough matchup. I think when it comes to this Alabama game, you at least have a lot of variance, right, with Alabama. So, like, if good Alabama shows up, sure, they'll cover whatever. It's going to be a high-scoring game, exciting, all that. But bad Alabama has shown up more than good Alabama over the last 3 weeks. They're giving up a ton of points. And I think Pat Kelsey is the type of mid-major coach that will get his team up for this game, get them believing in a potential upset. If we get to halftime and it's close or Charleston's in the lead, this could be really dangerous for Alabama because all the expectations have kind of come folding in on them over the last few weeks. And plus, like you said, the SEC, I mean, hasn't been great. Tennessee's got to win.
Oh, that's the only. I did forget about Tennessee. Yeah,
and Auburn's cruising at the moment. Florida's losing, but like the SEC is folding very quickly. And you're right. Part of it, at least some of the teams, has been because they haven't played a lick of defense.
Yeah, and that's kind of been my narrative all year on the SEC.
So let's get to a few other games on the slate tonight. Real quick, I kind of just want to breeze over Longwood and Houston and Purdue and Grambling because I don't think we're going to see much of a game from either of these teams. The one thing I will point out, yes, Purdue, they've lost to 3 double-digit seeds, all that. I kind of want to point out this with Houston, and it's the reason why I'm on Longwood at plus 24. I'm kind of just throwing a dart here and hoping it sticks. But 3 of the last 5 first-round games that Houston has been involved in from between 2018 and 2023, so it's the last 5 tournaments, 3 of those victories have been by less than 20 points. So I think that's a spot with Houston that you might be able to potentially fade them a little bit. I still think it's going to be a very close game against, a very tough game for Longwood. But I feel like in this instance, I think Longwood maybe hangs in if Houston is kind of taking the foot off the pedal, which is kind of what I'm projecting in this game. Is Houston just slow the pace down. They're not going to score a ton of points. And Longwood cleans up everything in the second half.
Yeah, I'm out on both these games. If I were to make a call on either, it would probably be the same bet I made with Arizona yesterday, which it has to be that Purdue has to come out with a sense of urgency.
Right.
Which we actually didn't see from Arizona. Arizona struggled.
No, they took over in the second half.
Yeah, but you have to imagine at some point Purdue will be like, we can't do this again. Like, we have to dominate. let's get over this as soon as we can. So, part of me thinks Purdue is the right game there, or the right side there.
Is there a number with Purdue? They say like they win by more than 20 that you can be like, okay, they're fine, move on. I know you're completely out. I know you're completely out on Purdue, but
no, my thing with Purdue, I won't stop doing it until the championship. Okay. Because I think any game with my whole thing with Purdue is less about, this is the same team as last year. I do think there's some credence to it. I think they play a really similar style. My whole thing is just that I think they're so dependent on how a game's officiated. I think I've never seen a team in sports as dependent on how a game is officiated on both ends, because Zach Edey gets treated like he's like a 6-foot guard with how they call fouls against him, and they just send him to the line no matter what. We've seen the Big Ten teams have struggled in the past in the tournament. And I think some of that is because of the way that the Big Ten is officiated as opposed to when they get to the tournament. I think it is a little bit more ticky-tack, and they get to the line a lot. Terrence Shannon was like second in free throw attempts in the country behind Edey, I believe. So I do think that there's something to be said about that. And we saw last year they didn't call fouls when St. Peter's was doubling and sending guards at Zach Edey's ankles and stuff last year. Or not St. Peter's. That was, Fairleigh Dickinson. But they were sending guys and they weren't calling anything. I think we could see a similar thing. And another thing is, if Zach Edey's in foul trouble, they're cooked. So that's just that he's so much more important to that team than any singular player is to any other team in the country, that if he's in foul trouble, I think the game's over no matter who they play, almost, besides maybe a 16. So I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned about Purdue every single game. And I will say, in terms of where they could go down, has anybody in this tournament looked better than Gonzaga looked last night or yesterday? I mean, that is a scary Sweet 16 potential matchup for Purdue.
Yeah. So one more quick hitter I want to put on is Duke. I'm on their team total over 72.5. I'll give you this kind of stark trend. Look, Vermont, they get into the tournament. They don't really do much after that. The last 4 tournament appearances for Vermont, and 3 of them have been as a 13 seed, they've given up 80, 76, 75, and 78. And if you go back to 2012, that would be 5 straight losses because they gave up 77 to North Carolina. 5 straight losses in the NCAA tournament for Vermont, but they've given up 75 points or more. I like this team total with Duke. I think Duke has a fairly easy time with Vermont tonight. I feel like we don't talk about them. They're like your third TV team. And I think Duke just comes out, handles their business, scores a lot of points, and we kind of move on from them with the Blue Devils. And then the rest of the slate. Let's get into the exciting games. Texas A&M and Nebraska. I think, for my money, now Colorado, Florida is turning out to be a really good game. But I think in terms of just pure shot making, Texas A&M and Nebraska is going to be the best game of the first round. You have Tome and Alga on one side with Nebraska. You have Radford and Taylor on the other side with A&M. A&M, their defensive metric or their offensive metrics don't exactly suggest that they are an 80, 90-point team, but they've been doing so on a consistent basis. I think this game is going to be up and down. You're going to see a lot of shot making. I think A&M pulls it out in the end, but I really like the over in this game. And I'm really happy this is the first game off on the night slate. And then we have a 1 seed, I believe, with Purdue happening after that, and Duke as well. So like this could be the game that gets everyone's full attention, and the nation gets to watch how great all of these guards are.
Yeah, I do just want to chime in real quick because you mentioned Duke. And I do just want to say I have Duke minus 11.5 in that one. And if you can still get Duke to the Sweet 16 at minus 110, I think that's incredible value. I talked about it. I love the path there for them. As for Nebraska, I like Nebraska here, but I'd be lying if I said that I think it's out of much more than pure loyalty. Nebraska's been one of those teams that's just been so good to me all year. So I've got a lower confidence play. And to be honest, another part of it is and I guess you could tell I've crapped on the SEC how many times in this podcast, but I'm lower on Texas A&M than most people are. Like, this is a team that was 17-14 pretty recently. And they've won, a couple games since then, or maybe 17-13 it was, but I'm just nowhere near as high on this Texas A&M team. I feel like Buzz Williams is such a media darling that no matter what, if they're in the tournament, people are going to be like, oh, watch out for Texas A&M. But to be quite honest, like, the people that are saying, like, watch out for Texas A&M against Houston, I think it's nuts.
I don't think so against Houston. I think Houston's a team that typically handles their business the first weekend. So I don't think that's going to be the case. By the way, we might have I think we will, the way this Colorado game is going, first team to hit 100 in the NCAA tournament this year. I mean, it's 85-75 with 7 minutes to go. With the way these two teams have been playing, I think it's going to be it might be pretty easy for them to hit the 100 mark.
The refs are calling a ton of fouls in that game.
They are.
It's helping with that. I mean, Colorado in the bonus plus and Florida already in the bonus. So yeah, it's early.
Where's this game out in Indy? Yeah, so the Purdue game's not starting until like close to 8 o'clock at this point.
yeah, for sure.
Speaking of late tips, the last one of the night, St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. I think it's going to be the polar opposite of A&M and Nebraska. I think it'll be a slow game. I think St. Mary's probably handles their business here. I've seen a few people say Grand Canyon has a shot. Talk to me if you think Grand Canyon has any like remotely decent chance to beat St. Mary's tonight.
I don't. I really like St. Mary's. I actually have a little late night parlay, and we've talked about the other two games, so I waited for the last one. It's 10-1. You can get 10-1 now. I got it at plus 950, but you can get JMU, Utah State, and St. Mary's on the money line at 10-1 in a little parlay like that. I'm not a big parlay guy, but I thought that was worth a little swing there. I think JMU's money line's a little bit too high. I think Utah State's money line's way too high, and I think St. Mary's being able to enhance a parlay at all is I'll take it, because I think Grand Canyon doesn't have much of a chance. And you can clip this later when they inevitably win, because I said that. But I've said since the bracket came out, and I've said since kind of they've been a projected seed for a long time, they have a crazy home court environment. If you never watched a Grand Canyon game, they have one of the best home court environments in the country, and they kill teams at home. And I think some of their metrics get inflated. I think that their record gets inflated. They don't lose at home. I think they're a little bit of a home court merchant. That's a
fair one.
You take them out of that environment, I don't think they're the same team. I know they have an NBA guy, and I think his name's Tyron Grant Foster, right? I think he's probably going to be a lottery pick, but I just don't think they're going to have what it takes to handle St. Mary's, who's extremely experienced. They've been here before. I think St. Mary's takes care of business.
I think it's the same point that I made with Mark Few and Gonzaga yesterday. Is if there was a 5 seed that maybe is new to the tournament, it maybe has not been around the block, and has not a lot of experience dealing with the mid majors, then maybe. But St. Mary's has been one of the premier mid majors for a long time now. They've made runs in the tournament before. If anyone knows how to guard against it, and this is the exact same script I used for Mark Few against McNeese, it's Randy Bennett and St. Mary's. I feel like that's kind of just where I stand with that. And I think the St. Mary's Alabama game would be fascinating if we get there because of the stylistic clashes. I don't think we'll get there. That's why I have St. Mary's to the Sweet 16, because I think Charleston ends up taking advantage of Alabama. But even if we get to that point, I think it's going to be a very, very, very fascinating matchup.
And again, with how good Gonzaga looked yesterday, I think, and we've both been really high on Gonzaga as of late, but I think Gonzaga looks like one of the very best teams in the country. I think if you had to make a list with teams that can win the title, I think they have to be on it. They were 50-1 yesterday. I'm kicking myself for not getting. I saw it right after their tip that it was a running ticker where I was at, and it was 50-1. I was kicking myself for not getting in on that at some point, because they were on the list that I gave out. They're 40-1 right now after looking how they looked yesterday. I think that's worth a sprinkle. And if I'm thinking about sprinkling on Gonzaga 40-1 to win the national championship, I've got to give respect to St. Mary's, who handled them twice. I think there's a chance St. Mary's and Gonzaga both were two of the top 8 teams in the country, the top 10 teams in the country, and we just didn't know.
Very possible. It's very possible. I mean, look at the potential contenders that have been flying off the radar at this point, that we've had some questions about. And look, I don't think we talk about the WCC much because we expect Gonzaga and St. Mary's to be there.
They're minus 15.5 every night.
But they're there. But they're there. They are there, and they got to deserve a ton of credit to do so. Mark, what do we have coming up on the tough cover tomorrow morning, leading us into NCAA tournament coverage on Saturday?
Yeah, big stream leading into the 12:45 game. AAA presenting sponsor. We are very, very excited. Yeah, I was gonna do a baseball preview, like a season preview, but it's like bad job by the MLB. Like it's gonna get totally lost in the shuffle here. Because then the opening day is, I believe, the first day of the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's just bad job, MLB, to have your opening day in South Korea and then a week later on the Sweet 16 day. So that's why college basketball, runs March here. So that's what it is. But we're excited to talk all the college basketball, a little bit of baseball. We'll preview a little bit, and then I'm sure Sean Bernard will twist my arm and get me to talk some Sixers.
Late night game tonight for the Sixers too.
10:30.
Yeah,
they were plus 9.5. I saw the line went all the way down to 7. I liked it at 9.5. The Lakers don't tend to blow a lot of teams out. I would still maybe even take a look at them at 7.5. But man, the Sixers without Joel are not very watchable.
Just get me to the playoffs. Just get me to the playoffs. That's all I want. For Mark Henry Jr., I am Joe Tansey. Best of luck, everyone, on your bets tonight. Mark will be with you Saturday morning, and we'll be back on Sunday morning to preview the Sunday games as well. Once again, we are presented by AAA. Best of luck on your bets tonight, and we will see you tomorrow with the tough cover.